The special meeting of the District Board of Directors to address finance is called to order. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is now the time for public expression on, oh, I'm sorry, Armando, I forgot you're on the phone. I apologize. Can we please have a roll call vote?
Director Bragman?
Aye.
Director Gibson?
Aye.
Director Kohler?
Aye.
Director Russell?
Aye.
Director Quintero?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, this is now the time for public expression on any item that is not on the agenda. Any public expression? Seeing none, we'll move on to the calendar. I now need a motion to adopt the minutes of the October 2019 special meeting on finance.
Move approval.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Bragman?
Aye.
Director Gibson?
Aye.
Director Kohler?
Aye.
Director Russell?
Aye.
Director Quintero?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to the monthly financial update.
So before we go on to the monthly financial update, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Becker. He's the new financial management analyst. He's from the Santa Cruz Water Department, so very familiar with water operation.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
So monthly financial update, we'll start with the revenue page. So we are at about 6 months of the fiscal year, half of the fiscal year. Revenue is about 59.7%. Water revenue is slightly higher than 50%. It's mainly because if you move on to the next page, you can see the trend of the month-to-month water revenue comparison compared to fiscal year 19. So we had a rate increase impact starting around September. So you can see water revenue in red color start to going up. But first July and August was a little lower because our rate increase didn't really go into impact on July and August. And then consumption-wise, this is Jeremy's idea. So consumption-wise, we are slightly higher than fiscal year 19 year-to-date. And you can see a tier breakdown. Tier 1, they've been staying about the same. If the red part is it's hard to see, but red part is the fiscal year 20, and blue bar is the fiscal year 19, and they are not increasing in the consumption-wise, and they're about the same. We are just a slightly higher year-to-date compared to fiscal year 19. And this is another comparison of our sales, water sales, tier breakdown. So this is a consumption not in dollar. So tier 1, their consumption is about steady fiscal year. Last 3 fiscal years about the same. It's even slightly lower than fiscal year 19, and tier 2, slightly higher, but our consumption not increasing. You can see the trend. It's been flat over the last 3 years. So expenditure-wise, our operating expense is about 51.7% year-to-date. Capital side is slightly slower than expected. Fire flow project, we deliberately slowed down because we've been overspending last 2 fiscal years and trying to recoup our negative fund balance. And then district capital projects, if you go into the detail, we are mainly focusing in pipeline replacement. And one of the main reason we are slower than expected is because treatment plant upgrade that we were supposed to spend mainly on the clarifier, right, but that didn't kick in, so it's lower. So go back to expenditure. So overall, we are where we are expected to be as of December. Any questions so far?
Board questions?
Just the drop in debt service payment, is that related to the CMF or where it goes?
No. Budget is the whole year,
I
but then
see.
this is
I
only
got it.
half of the fiscal year.
Okay.
So.
Any other board questions or comments? Armando, I want to make sure we get you on the phone.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, going backward. So ending fund balance has not changed much. Only noticeable item is a fire flow fund. You've seen the negative fund balance last 2 fiscal years, but now we are finally catching up on the fund balance since we received the first installment. And a capital fund slightly decreased. We are spending, and at the same time, we are receiving CMF, so we are maintaining the fund balance. And then expected debt coverage ratio, due to the CMF, we are expecting a lot higher debt coverage ratio
Sure.
by the end of the year. Any questions on the fund balance?
It's all making sense to me.
What's the under debt?
Oh, those are clean energy renewal bond, as well as Los Colinas bond, and then aqua water. And we just went over the capital expenditures, so you can see mainly focus on the pipeline replacement, and we are getting quite a few customer reimbursable projects. You can see year-to-date about 1.2 million, 0.4 million, and grant project is mainly AMI grant that we are spending.
And that's
Yeah.
mainly state money, right?
Yes,
That's
they're all
proposition
state, yes.
Okay.
There are no federal grants so far.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the monthly financial update.
Okay. Any further comments on the phone from you, Armando, before we move on? Okay. Any other board comments? Any comments from the public? I'm not seeing them. All right. Thank you very much. We are going to move on to item 3, board policy 33, and dealing with investment policy.
So item number 2 is to update the investment policy number 33. So the government code has not changed. We reviewed the government code 53601 through 53609. They have not changed. Only change that we have noticed is the LAIF deposit limit. The state treasurer's office increased the LAIF deposit limit from 65 million to 75 million, and we are requesting the board to update the investment policy in line with the state changes in LAIF deposit limit to 75 million.
Okay. So this seems like a mainly technical change. Okay. All right, and so this is an I'm sorry? Okay, this is an approval item for, to move to the board.
Yes.
Is there any board discussion on this item? Okay, then I think we need a motion to
I need a motion and a
move
second.
it forward.
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
And now we need a roll call vote.
So this is stated as an approval of this policy. We could, the committee could move it to the full board
Oh,
or could
I'm sorry.
select to approve it as stated.
Okay, I think then if the recommendation is to approve it as stated, I don't know that we need to move this to a full board meeting, then so I think we're going to slightly amend the motion for approval
Move
as
to
is.
approve it, yeah.
Second.
Do I have a second on that?
Larry
I
Bragman
did.
seconded.
All right, okay. Director Bragman.
Aye.
Director Gibson.
Aye.
Director Kohler.
Aye.
Director Russell. Director Quintero. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for bringing this forward, and thanks to everybody for getting this done. Okay, now we're going to move on to our 4th item, which is we are revisiting options for refunding water revenue bonds, Series 2022.
So I'll take this. This is a follow-on from Tuesday's meeting where the board approved Resolution 8554, the special board meeting authorizing issuance and sale of the refunding water bond Series 2022, and there were associated documents. And we're requesting that the board selects one of 2 refunding options described in this memo. The first option on the second page, it details it a bit. But prior, Table 1 does look at these 2 options, and the net present value shows slightly higher on the annual savings, but I think given just inherent variabilities a bit, they're not significant. The more significance probably is considering which option in terms of where the district's needs are in terms of taking advantage of this refunding opportunity. with the first being an annual savings to our debt services of an approximate amount of $450,000 a year that creates a capacity of that amount in the operating budget to be used to meet operational needs. It's my thought that were we to go in this direction, which is my recommended option, we would look at a range of, at a subsequent meeting, of possible positions to fill to meet real needs, real operational needs of the organization. And I put some examples, whether it be a ranger, an IT position, or a position in HR to develop a training program. There's also kind of an emerging administrative position need. We wouldn't be able to fund all of these, but we would work with the board to identify which ones made the most sense.
We have a comms need too.
Excuse me?
We have real need in communications as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a long list.
Yeah.
I'd work with the SLT to kind of identify the short list and have some discussion with the board where we'd go on that option. On option 2, that would address a different sort of needs, but there are quite a number of opportunities in regards to capital funds that need could be met. And I've identified a couple here. There's been discussions on the full-scale AMR, and that's probably on the order of $15 to $20 million. It's not in the CIP. There's accelerating work that's been identified as a priority by the board, certainly in the BIFUP work on the watershed for fuel reduction. There's key water system distribution storage projects that I'm confident will emerge as part of the distribution master plan that we're going to be getting going this spring. There's some funding in the CIP, but likely there'll be priorities identified that are not identified in the CIP. There's certainly water recycling projects that have been of interest for the organization that are not in the CIP, and then there's reserves, and that's probably the short list. So the reason I'm recommending option 1 is that the CMF, that the district, that the board adopted this past July does stabilize our capital funding, certainly relative to where we were, and it also really shifts, as you see where we saw today in debt service coverage ratio. And that does allow us, as these projects and needs, capital needs are identified, to think about 2 things. One, certainly reprioritizing the CIP if based on evolving priorities, but it also allows us, given the debt service coverage ratio we now have, to, in a thoughtful way, based on need, potentially go out to the bond market and kind of leverage the cash funding that we're doing with the CMF. So I look at it and think generally we're probably in a better position in terms of capital than we are in operating to meet these operational needs that I've discussed.
I have to say, I'm very persuaded by your position, Ben. I do think it's always harder for districts like ours to have secure funds on the operating side. You see it nationally, but we certainly are seeing it locally. So that would certainly be I would be very comfortable going in that direction. Is there further board conversation? I think, Larry Russell, you're the one that had concerns about this.
I still do.
Okay.
Did you see my email from last night?
Yeah.
And Jim, maybe you're the one that can answer this. Is the 450 guaranteed?
Jim Gibbs, Berry Capital. Yes.
Okay, so they're sitting on our money, paying us with their gain on our money, basically.
Who is the they?
Morgan Stanley?
Well, the reason Morgan Stanley is going to be paid a fee that we've already established. It's a certain percentage of the amount of bonds that we sell.
And what kind of, what is this premium? Is that their fee?
No. So their fee is about 0.2%. The premium relates to the way that we price the bonds. So we're going to sell, we could sell, for instance, $68 million, say, in bonds with what we call par coupons. Those are interest rates on each bond that precisely equal what the yield is in the market for AA bonds. However, as we have done with every bond issue that I've worked on, there is very strong demand, particularly from big institutional investors, big municipal bond funds, for bonds that have coupons that are higher than the yield in the market. So what we've done, frankly, what just about everybody does that's issuing bonds these days, will put a 5% coupon on most of the bonds. It's considerably higher than what the market rate is, and investors will pay us more than the face amount. Then that's what the premium is. So it's a significant factor in what we're doing. And it turns out that when you run the math on what the cost of the transaction is to you, when we use those premium coupons, we're actually reducing the all-in interest cost to the district because there's such a demand for these 5% coupons.
You know, the problem I have is that usually when the House is letting you do something, there's parts you don't see. You know, in other words, this whole thing sounds a little funny to me, not illegal or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just, why do you collect your fee up front and then give it back later? Why won't they just eliminate their fee, the 0.2%? If you're gonna pay us, why wouldn't you just take it off of the front end and get rid of it altogether?
Well, the 0.2% is, we have to pay them for, using the power that they have in the market to find really good buyers.
Well, except they're buying the bonds, right?
Yes, they are not only an arranger, but it turns out that a different part of the bank is the investor.
Right, and that's the part I'm having a little trouble with.
Uh-huh.
Not big trouble, but it just seems funny to me, and maybe the explanation you gave is the real, where they're going is, they're going to dump these onto somebody else, huh?
Sometime,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're just kind of holding them until they get the right buyer, and then they'll transfer.
Yeah, and the comfort that I can give you with regard to not only the 0.2%, but also exactly what the coupons, what the premium are, is that I know exactly what the market is doing, and I'm going to make sure that all of that pricing is advantageous to you.
We appreciate that. Like I said, I just have a caution about, like I say, when usually they let you do things, it's not to your advantage. In other words, they're making more on this than we're making, okay? That's the problem I'm having, and I can't follow why the money is treated differently. Why, if it comes in the beginning, it has to be spent in 3 years, but if it comes over time, it doesn't. Obviously not gonna be spent in 3 years, but why it's, one kicks into the capital side, and the other one you can do as you wish.
Let me ask Jim, the annual, is that revenue coming to us, or is it just that our debt service is reduced by that amount?
Your debt service is reduced.
So it frees up what would
I
otherwise
see.
be
It's
in
just-
the operating
yeah.
budget. That was my understanding.
It's simply a reduction in expense.
Yeah.
It's not money.
It's not cash.
Yeah.
Right. So Larry,
It also said it was almost 500,000. I mean, the 450 is sort of a low estimate, rounding down.
Yeah.
right.
So the other thing I was interested as far as total gross cost, which is do you have those numbers of the two options?
Isn't that the 9.17 and the 8? Well, maybe not.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yes, total gross cost of a lump sum option will be 83.6 million with a premium of 6.9 million. And then annual cash flow option is actually 74.3 million with a premium of 6 million. So actually, annual cash flow option is reducing our
Total
bond
debt.
debt. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
so that's kind of what pushes me that way.
One other piece I had meant to mention that the district, and we had talked about this back in July, still does have some, significant in the order of about $17 million of unappropriated capital dollars, meaning money that is not currently identified to be spent as part of the 10-year CIP, with the plan that is part of, as we sit down and develop the 10-year financial plan we'll be doing this spring and over the summer, the board will be looking at that and other considerations and be thinking about potentially using some of that money for these capital needs, whether it's reserves or some of these projects that we'd like to see move forward. So that will be part of the discussion in addition, and that's in addition to the funding of our CIP as we've identified it.
If I, Director Russell, Larry, if I could add one more comment with regard to your concern about, how this transaction works. We got 3 proposals from all big investment banks for this transaction. And most of them did what we actually thought we were going to do, which was to borrow in the taxable municipal market and do an advance refunding. Morgan Stanley, so we have comparables. This is all based on the same day in the market. How would you do this? Give us your best shot. And Morgan Stanley came in with this, we will buy them into our portfolio offer, and it is substantially better than the other two. I'll be happy to email you with that comparison. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, as you may recall, I had to recuse myself
Right,
in that discussion, so I haven't heard that part of the discussion.
yeah. No, that's the whopper, is that this is a really advantageous transaction. And as I say, I'll make sure, we'll keep their feet to the fire and make sure it works right.
Yeah, well, I trust you, Jim. And Morgan Stanley is fine with me. It just, like I said, when the House allows you to do something, usually it's to their benefit, not yours. So I'm just a little bit cautious.
Absolutely.
And I think that caution is fine, but I think the bottom line for us is less what are they making and more how does it benefit us? And, if they found a way to make money, yay them. But I mean, the important thing, at least from my perspective, is, having 450 to 500,000 extra operating cash dollars, that is meaningful over a long period of time. And I think I care more. I think, while I understand your concern, it's more important, I think, to really be looking at how the deal meaningfully affects the district's funds as opposed to what is the bank, what are they making, where are they not making. It's not a zero-sum game that if they're making something, we're losing. This is aside from Jim's point that this is a good deal from us, having that additional operating revenue seems to be very significant.
Maybe I didn't understand your comment. What I heard you say was it was $84 million one way
Total, yes,
and 74 the other way?
yes.
And did I get it wrong which way it is? Which is the 84?
That's a lump sum option,
The lump sum, okay.
yes.
Yeah. And I could, this is complicated stuff.
Yeah.
So let me sort of draw the distinction between just doing this thing for annual savings and getting $9 million up front. So if we first look at how we do the deal to just get the annual savings, that is simply a matter of borrowing enough money today and setting it aside so that we'll simply pay off the old bonds, and we'll do that at a lower interest rate, and that creates the savings. In the case of bringing the money in up front, we do that transaction, but on top of it, we borrow an additional $9 million. And the way the math works out is there will be no debt service savings over time.
Right.
that you will pay exactly the same debt service as on the old issue, but because the interest rates are lower, we can borrow more and deliver you the 9 million.
Oh, that was a much clearer explanation than I've had. Under that situation, I'm definitely in favor of the
Okay.
annual payment. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no reason to borrow more money to get the money paid to you up front. That's
Right.
Great.
Yeah, I had to think about this a lot.
Right, right. Sometimes translating these things into lay people's language is challenging.
Thank
So
you for your patience.
this is an approval item. Do we need a motion?
I'll move approval of option number 1, if for no other reason, based on our recommendation from the general managers, that this fits into our overall plan better than option 2.
Second.
Okay, we need. All right, and we have 2 seconds, and then what we need is a roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Kohler.
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Quintero.
Hi, and thank you, everybody, for the really good discussion.
Yes. Thank you as well, and thank you, Jim, for coming back again. We really
Yep.
appreciate it, and your always insightful guidance through these very complicated finance issues. So thank you for
I had a
that.
hunch it'd be good to be here this morning.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody, we are adjourned.
not quite.
Oh, we're not adjourned. That was my last agenda item.
Sorry, yeah, but
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Armando.
on the audit
Yes.
report, there's either a typo or there's a misunderstanding because Lon is still shown as the contact for these
We,
committees.
yes, we have to report that as of fiscal year 19 January, because it will be updated in the next year, CAFR, because it's a past, not the current,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay.
But thank you for catching that, Eagle Eyes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it just stood out to me, so.
right. All right, we are adjourned now.